What is going on, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another video. Today we are checking out SCP-106, the young man, question mark, or, well, as he's known, the old man. Yeah, this is from the volgun. A lot of people have been requesting this video, to be fair. A lot of people want me to check him out. We did see him in the top 22 scariest SCPs. He was right at the top of the list. He was either 3 or 2, I don't remember. Obviously, he can go into different dimensions. He seems to live forever. There's a lot of... He's a fucking weirdo, okay? He doesn't need to eat, it seems. He kills for fun. Yeah, he can go through solid objects. I mean, the guy is dangerous and scary. Definitely someone you want to run into. Definitely not one of the SCPs you want to see. If you are new to the channel, be sure to leave a like on this video. And subscribe for more SCP content and all kinds of other content, of course. Be sure to join our Discord for more fun and adventures. You can watch me stream on Twitch live. We stream fun games as well. But yeah, man, we're going to get into this video. Be sure to let me know some suggestions, man. The question of the day today is, what is the scariest SCP in all of the SCP? Like, what one are you most scared of? If any SCP, which one would you least like to run into? You guys let me know, okay, in the comments below. Which one would you not like to run into? But yeah, we're going to get into this. We haven't seen Volgun in a while. What was that?
That's not to say that nobody tried.
Shit, probably should rewind that. Let's go.
Nobody could like Corporal Lawrence. That's not to say that nobody tried, or that he was somehow unfriendly.
Who's Corporal Lawrence?
Merely that he was one of those few that seemed to be wired differently. However, in the trenches of World War I, normalcy was at best a relative term, and one that had minimal relation of life, such as it was. Lawrence fought, listened to orders, and didn't disrupt the other soldiers, and that was all that was required. So what if people felt increasingly uncomfortable around him? In a place where the flesh rotting off your bones while you were still alive was the baseline of concern, a little personality conflict ranked several levels below a paper cut.
That's true. World War I was not the place to be. I'm gonna tell you, in terms of what used to go down, bro. Forget all the killing, okay? The conditions were fucking horrendous, bro. Like, you see, man. The trenches, like, obviously they're dug out of fucking mud, okay? And in Europe, where most of the fighting took place, France, Germany, Belgium, whatever, it rains a shit ton, okay? It rains. So you're digging these holes, water's gonna drain into them if it rains. It's wet, it's cold, it's muddy. I mean, there's rats, there's disease, like, you're dirty, your friends are dying all around you. Fuck, it just wasn't the place. And then you never know if you're gonna die tomorrow, if the shells are gonna drop into your trench. What if they gas you? You know what I mean? Like, yeah, World War I was definitely not a experience that you want to have.
Lawrence, for his part, dealt with it as he always had. That is to say, remained totally unaware of the avoidance. The same way a blind man from birth cannot mourn the memory of colour.
I was gonna say, with all those problems, if you have a little personality disorder or a bit disconnected, I don't think anybody's gonna really notice it, you know what I mean?
Corporal Lawrence couldn't bemoan a lack of company. He was quiet, as he had no one to talk to. And still, as he had nothing to do for long stretches of time. The enemy trench, less than a mile away, had gone silent for several days, letting boredom and nervousness sink in even more than normal, coupled with the unease that seemed to radiate off of Lawrence like heat waves. The worst part was that there was no distinct reason to dislike the corporal. He was a plain man, average height, average build, bland of voice and action. Nobody could recall him raising his voice in joy or anger. He did have the occasional odd mannerisms, however. He tended to stare a beat or two longer than was acceptable at people. He rarely slept well, and bunkmates said he would mumble in his sleep almost constantly. The content of those nocturnal ramblings, when they could be understood, were often odd and potentially unsettling. One private moved to another barracks when he heard the name of his daughter pass Corporal Lawrence's lips, followed by a bubbling, muffled giggle.
Okay.
It was strongly theorized that he was sent over the trench by his commanders, more out of a desire to have him away than for his minimal combat skill. He and 14 of his fellows were sent across the nightmarishly scarred waste of the no man's land between the trenches to reconnoiter the enemy trench and secure it, if possible. Many seemed to hope that Lawrence would have the opportunity to prove his devotion to his country by making the ultimate sacrifice for it.
Oof. So to be standing out in the trenches, to be creeping people out, and they want you to die. You gotta be some serious level of weird, dude. Some serious level.
It was while he was gone, that 3-day gap, as men held their breath, waiting for a surprise volley of shells, that someone started asking questions. Whereas before, it was almost taboo to speak of Corporal Lawrence. Since the departure of both him and his aura, rumor seemed to descend with the passion of the denied. Nobody remembered ever talking of home. No sweet-smelling letters came. No soggy, dirt-streaked letters left. He mentioned his dreams often, and griped sometimes with the men over missed foods or pleasures, but never with any real passion. Questions started to float among the even higher levels of command. Nobody was able to actually find his station orders. He came in with a squad of reinforcements transferred from France, but there was no paperwork. The rest of the reinforcement squad had never seen the man before he'd been lumped in with them the night before the trip, along with the snips and scraps of the other squads decimated by the Germans. Whispers filtered among the grunts of the corporal being a curse. Nearly every man who'd shared a bunkhouse with him had gotten trenchfoot, and the rooms he haunted always seemed to smell more musty and sickly sweet.
Trenchfoot. I actually know what that is. My English teacher back in year 9 made a point of letting us know what it is. And obviously, because you're wearing the same boots and the same, shoe, whatever, you're in a trench, your feet are constantly wet, your feet kind of fall apart, I guess. Like, the two parts of your feet can just slide apart, your heel and shit can come out. Oh, it's disgusting, bro. Do not search it up. Do not search it up.
Even for the trench. The men sent over the no man's land with Corporal Lawrence heard and cared for none of this. Just another man among many, all with death certificates waiting a stamp that could fall at any moment. They moved fast and low, from crater to crater, slipping over slick mudded barbed wire, the only thing that seemed to grow in that blasted waste. Charging the last spurt and into the trench, they were greeted not with the harsh bark of German orders and rifles, but a dense, close silence, preparing for an ambush. The men started to filter out into the tunnels and holes of the trench. The men, already nervous, were not calmed by their investigation. The trenches stank of mold, sweat, and a thin undertaste of rotten fruit. A vile, clawing slime seemed to have pooled in every divot and crack, sticky as glue and itchy on the flesh. In a world where rats and insects would try to snatch food from your mouth, even as you ate, they saw nothing alive.
Just
not
get
so
out.
much as a fly.
Get out.
An armory lay in chaos.
Get out.
Ammunition spilled on the ground, rifles tossed like pickup sticks. A mess hall had been reduced to ruins. The tables and chairs piled in the center of the room, charred and twisted. The rations seemingly stamped into the dirt by many feet. And still, nothing, alive or dead, was found by the increasingly anxious soldiers.
Yeah, I would be.
Private Dixon found the first body and managed to cry out before vomiting. They knew it had been a man only because nothing else of that size could have been there. It lay on the floor of the barracks. The entire floor, the flesh of it had been smeared somehow. Spread like butter over the rough dirt floor.
No.
Bones, already looking pitted and rotten, stuck out at random angles, like dead trees in a still swamp.
I don't need this imagery. I don't. That's disgusting. It would definitely be quite creepy to find a trench almost just left and everyone gone. like it should be in action, but there's no people there. That'd be even probably worse or creepier than finding people there and fighting them, wouldn't it? To be fair, because you expect to find people, you know?
The skull rested on one of the highest bunks facing the doorway.
Oh no.
10 gleaming white fingertip bones, crammed into the cracked eye sockets.
What?
As one man went to examine it, he found the back of the skull had been crushed open. The rotting, sagging sponge of a tongue stuffed into the otherwise dry cavity. More remains were found, each seemingly more unsettling and strange than the last. A ring of hands in a sandbagged watchpost. 10 of them, fingers interlaced like a basket, the wrists ragged and broken. 2 men in a tunnel, skin leathery and thin as mummies. Eye sockets staring and empty, mouths locked impossibly wide. Their clothes mere rags under an oily black scum. The latrines sent even the hardest back, gagging and shivering, overflowing with excrement and offal. Gobbets of meat bobbed and oozed from the foul sludge. The whole surface dotted with what looked like thousands of clean, slick eyeballs, nerves and tendons fanning out like goldfish tails. Corporal Lawrence was the first to find the hole, the other men loudly debating the better part of valor and their rapid withdrawal from the nightmare trench.
I would have gone.
It was small. In a section of fresh digging, the start of a new arm of trenches projecting closer to enemy lines, no more than 4 feet across.
Lord knows, man, if I saw that, I would have been sprinting back to my trench.
It seemed to be the accidental uncovering of a natural chamber, the empty blackness of it defying investigation. Private Dixon, recovered and blessedly numb from his previous ordeals, saw the corporal prod the edge with his boot, then crouch to peer in, then suddenly slide in head first before the private could do so much as utter a shout of question. The private was a good soldier, and rushed to the perceived distress of his fellow.
Oh, idiot.
When questioned later, he could provide little illumination as to what happened over the 2 minutes Corporal Lawrence spent in the hole. He could see nothing. The light of a torch seemingly gobbled up a few feet into that dense blackness. There were sounds. The rustle of movement over loose stone or rubble. An odd liquid, shifting. A dry rustle that made him think of the insect husks he'd used to collect in the summer. As he shouted for aid, there was a sudden upwelling of a repulsive stench, like a reptile house gone sour and old.
You mean to tell me this man got sucked into a hole in a trench and you, like head first, like that, and you stayed there and looked inside the hole? Are you fucking serious? Oh my god. This guy's an idiot. He's an absolute idiot. I'm sorry. I don't deal with that.
And his fellow soldiers found him retching helplessly beside the hole when they came around the turn. It was as they rushed to Private Dixon's aid that the hand emerged from the hole. They stopped and raised rifles as one body, roaring from the owner of that pale, trembling hand to identify himself. As they watched another hand join the first, followed by the pale, shivering head of Corporal Lawrence, he was streaked and smeared with a tarry black ooze, hacking and coughing thinly as he hauled his body up beside that of the gasping private. As they moved in to help the men, the corporal vomited up a heavy stream of the same repulsive slime that coated his body in smears and globs.
That's disgusting.
His curled, shuddering body voiding more of it into his saturated, foul pants. They were hesitant to touch him, finally doing so after the seemingly endless river of slime stopped pouring from him. He was insensible, eyes rolling and wide, body as limp as a boned fish. The men quit the trench with all speed, half dragging the corporal.
I would have left him.
With no thought to cover or death, only escape.
I would have left him.
They crossed in record time, falling into their home trench like so much cordwood, gasping and shivering. One man, known to have bludgeoned a German to death with a brick, curled on the floor in a sobbing heap.
Crazy.
The commanders moved quickly, isolating the men and trying to calm the most lucid for a report.
Man said you murdered a guy with a brick and you scarred that bad, yeah, in a fetal position. Jesus.
What spilled out would have been immediately dismissed as lies and hallucination were it not for the earnest, pleading stares of those reporting. Command calmed them with explanations of battle fatigue and strange gas weapon tests, and shared silent, focused stares as the cowed men were ushered out. Corporal Lawrence had little to report. Of his time in the hole, he could, or would, say little. He stated that he had slipped and fallen into what may have been some long-blocked underground pool, or perhaps a buried latrine. Of the sounds and smells reported by the private,
that would make sense.
He had nothing to say, only that he had struggled for a short time, then managed to get back out just as the men arrived. Truly, he seemed none the worse for wear.
Yeah, it sounds
in fact,
like it.
He seemed in better spirits than many had remembered ever seeing him.
My man dropped in a fucking hole of black goo, was coughing it up, was shitting his pants, all of that, and he's fine. He fell in a toilet, according to him.
Favoring the commanders with a wide, giddy smile as he was dismissed with a warning not to discuss the events.
Oh, please don't discuss the events.
The corporal had proved a changed man over the next few days. He was more talkative, but quickly had men wishing for his old, unsettling silence. He rambled about the joys of close spaces, of creation and destruction that seemed to spring up all around them, about human pleasures missed, the dimensions and ages of which made some men threaten Corporal Lawrence with a quiet and ignoble death, which only seemed to stretch the near constant smile in his face even wider. Private Dixon, one of the corporal's bunkmates, whispered to a friend that he had woken once to find the corporal standing over him in the night, his eyes as bright and flat as silver dollars.
That's fucked up.
They found the private the next day, snarled in the barbed wire, his intestines spread nearly 10 feet around him, in every direction.
And no one put a
Not one
bullet in
man
this
from
man.
that trench survived the Great War.
No one put a bullet in this man. Nobody, when he was acting like a weirdo. I would have put a bullet in him. That's all I'm gonna say.
Although a few died in battle, a wave of sickness took the trench a few days after Private Dixon's death. A strange wasting sickness. It seemed to eat the flesh like acid. Men waking to find previously healthy flesh eaten down to the bone, oozing and blackened. A sergeant was found in a latrine, beset by a living carpet of rats. They refused to quit the body even when shot, and attacked several men before the body was recovered. Relief finally came, the bulk of the men being sent to various hospitals, many wasting away before they ever reached a bed. Corporal Lawrence was remanded to a French mental ward, transferred after several complaints from the hospital proper where he was first sent. It seemed his behavior hinted at a growing mental imbalance, culminating with an attempted sexual assault of a nurse, which ended with the loss of 3 fingers from her right hand and the vision in her eye.
What was he doing?
The corporal would rant quietly to the other patients, whispers about endless halls, pursuits in the dark, flesh laid out like pages of a book. It was dismissed as so much war fatigue, even as his behavior grew less violent and more unsettling. He vanished several times from the ward, only to appear several hours later as if nothing had happened.
And no one
when pressed,
put a bullet in
he would
this
begin
man.
to sing "My Bonnie Lies Over the Sea" in an endless monotone until the doctors left, exacerbated.
So obviously that's how the old man can teleport. So he's teleporting to the other dimension, obviously.
Others on the ward clamoured to be transferred from the whispering madman. A stale, musty foulness seemed to sit in the air whenever he stayed, and incidents of infection and the strange consuming sickness that had beset his home trench seemed to follow him like a cloud. Numerous attempts were made to transfer the man, only to be met with bureaucratic confusion. No records were found of the man, no entry papers,
no one put a bullet in this guy.
commendations or incidents, not even a birth certificate. Through it all he sat, for hours on end, cross-legged on his bed, occasionally humming tunelessly or rambling off the names of his ward mates between short, bubbling giggles. Corporal Lawrence and 18 men vanished one November night, between a 5-minute nurse rotation at 3 a.m. The room reeked of rust, oil, mold, and sweet rot. Thick, black swaths of crumbling ooze coated the beds and several of the walls. Wide patches of it smearing and eating to the floor. Of the men, there was no sign at first. As they searched, one nurse shifted a bed aside, only to shriek and nearly trip across one of the sunken, reeking depressions on the floor. In a tight, perfect spiral were what appeared to be hundreds of teeth, resting neatly on the floor. After counting, they accounted for the total of all the teeth.
Wait, they touched it!
Every living soul in that ward.
Why would they... I would just leave. Why are these people so intent on... Just leave! Obviously there's a problem. Go home! Fucking hell.
But one. The corporal was never found.
What a surprise.
Nor were the men. The incident was swallowed by the constant barrage of horrors from the front and forgotten with ease. Stories of a cursed trench wandered across the front lines, often squelched for being bad luck. Still, they came. Stories of strange deaths, of disappearing men, found days later, alive, but broken and twisted beyond comprehension. Stories of a strange, dark figure stalking the bomb-riddled towns of Europe. This may be the only known image of Corporal Lawrence ever recorded.
Don't show me that.
Taken several days after his return from the hole in the German trench.
That is creepy. No, take it off my screen. Yeah, I'm not creeping myself out by watching that last bit. I'm sorry, ladies and gents. There is no fucking way. Nope. Nope, 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 nope. So, I don't know what the fuck was wrong with this guy. Obviously, he had some problems before. He was quiet. He was a weirdo. He had some issues. People didn't like him, but people chalked it up to him being weird, even though it was creepy. He went to another trench. He fell into a hole, got all this black liquid on him, and all of a sudden, bad shit started happening. People started dying. He became insane with a smile on his face. I don't know if he was the guy to begin with or if the black fluid done anything, to be fair, because there was no records of him before either. So yeah, it's very weird. He's definitely one of the creepier ones I've seen so far. We'll definitely probably have to check out another video on him to get like the story of his abilities and stuff. That's just the origin story. So yeah, man, that's gonna be a fun video. But yeah, man, if you enjoyed this reaction, be sure to leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.